think I've sent that fucking book.
Christ on all, and welcome to the latest episode of the Fearless in Devotion podcast. We have Andy Gilpin, we have Tim Edwards, and we have Rhys Williams, and myself, Andrew Pollard. Of course, this episode is sponsored by our fantastic sponsors, the Fat Boar Group, the Fat Boar in Mold, Wrexham, Hill Street Social, the My Squin Hall, FA's Colour Board, the Book, in Bangor, and the Christ Howl. I'm just delaying putting off talk about the football, I'll be honest, with with that, because we're just fresh off the back of Reading 2, Wrexham nil. I don't want to go all out and say label it the worst performance of the season, but Rhys, you were at the game, so we'll start with you. Uh, your thoughts on the performance, and what was the vibe like in the ground before and after the game?
Well, it got off to a terrible start because I realised that I was the wrong side of the netting to spend time with Mr. Gilpin. And
A terrible start because I think we both agreed that that was actually quite a good start to the evening.
no, I know I said that, but actually I find it difficult when I don't have it's the presence of you there that I can just touch you and make sure that you're still there and you're okay when I need to. So that was a bad start, and it only got worse. I mean, the first half I thought was a typical sort of us performance, really. Away or home sometimes. In that we kind of looked solid but didn't really deliver much. We weren't getting on the ball at all, and obviously second half then was when it just went disastrously wrong and comprehensively. I would say comprehensively outplayed by Reading, but also that is undoubtedly the worst I've seen us. I think that was really, really shockingly bad. I'm as many of you know, I'm not really an overreactor, I don't think, but I think what worries me a little bit is the midfield. And I think do we know more about Dobson's injury? Because that worries me, having only just recently lost Cannon. I think we're looking a bit thin there, and yeah, it was pretty disastrous. The M4 was closed around Cardiff, so I didn't get home till 1:30, and I had to get up at 7 a.m. to go to work. So yeah, I'm in a bad mood.
I think we're all a little bit naggy today. Andy, I didn't realize you'd gone to the game as well. We'll come to you next, and me and Tim watching at home, but not together because that'd be weird. Just like an arm in arm next to each other. But yeah, Andy, yourself, was that how bad was that? And how did the fans react to the performance? Because it's one thing to get beat, but it felt so flat a performance from. As Rhys said, we started off with the usual how we do, where let people come onto us away from home, but it never got good. There was the one Barney chance, but other than that, and the Sam Smith header in the second half. But other than that, it was just Reading. Fair play to him with the young team they've got. It was we were outfought, we were outplayed.
I think I've said this in the newsletter this week actually, and I'm probably just going to have to pop up the
Yeah, sorry, I forgot to plug that
the
at the beginning.
QR code for the new. You're too busy. You're too busy.
Do you have a newsletter?
Sorry. Yes, we do.
Do you have a
Have I
newsletter?
not ever talked about it? Yeah, yeah. I'm glad you've asked. Actually, we've got a newsletter. It's really good. There's the code if anybody wants to join up. It's £15 for the first year, and it is well worth it. Right. I talk about this in the newsletter, but for me, Wrexham FC just seem to exist, and what I mean by that is they're just there. They just sort of get the ball, maybe play it around, try and get it to the wings. Give that a go. It doesn't. It comes back, and usually you can do that by just being solid, having a nice tight back three, two wing backs that tuck in away from home and don't give a lot of space or a lot of time, and you basically wear out the opposition. And then you bring on some quality subs with 20 minutes to go, and that's where you sort of get on the front foot. It's like a boxer sort of just negotiating the first 9 rounds and then being a little bit more explosive towards the end because you've just got that little bit better quality on the bench than probably a lot of your opposition. And all through the first half, I thought, right, Reading are going to tire themselves out here. Reading are going to tire themselves out. The amount of chasing and running down they were doing, I was thinking, right, this is playing into the proper parky sort of trap. The problem was this works if the opposition don't score. And it certainly doesn't work if the opposition score 2, because then you are really struggling because it's hard to. It's like if you go back to the boxer analogy, you're looking for a knockout, and I don't think Wrexham are really a sort of knockout team that can take a side apart. And so it took us to when they went down fortuitously, I think, to 10 men before we really started to up the ante a little bit. Now, look, I was annoyed yesterday, as probably Rhys was, driving down the M4 in a circle on
He
his
still
way
isn't.
home. Sorry?
He still is very annoying.
I
know what
wasn't,
I like
I
about
wasn't
Rhys?
driving down the M4 in a circle, by the way. I'm not sure how you do that, but I definitely wasn't doing that. What I got to say about the fan reaction, though, by the way,
Yeah.
the highlight for me actually was that, because as I was walking out, walking down the steps, some of the players were coming over to applaud the away fans, and there was a chap behind me. You know the scene in Alan Partridge where when he's shouting, "Dan, Dan!"
Yeah.
This fan was just going, "You're better than that. You're better than that." And I counted it, and it was 17 times.
Oh.
And it was at the exact same pitch as Dan. And I all the way back home, I was just going, "You're better than that. You're better than that." And
Telling the
that was highlight of my
M4.
evening.
You're telling the M4, you're better than this. You're better than
Yeah,
this.
come on.
Please, can some tech wizard put Rhys's "You're better than that" over some sort of like hip hop beat, just so we can play it next week, because that is a banger. It's a banger in waiting.
Right. Can I just say one thing before I hand it over to you guys? Look, right. Basically, I think we've all sort of thought that we've overperformed this season, right? We all think we're higher than we all thought we would be at the start of this term. That is because of the way Parky plays. And that is because of the way that he's got us set up. And it means that we grind out wins. Now, if you play like that, it will allow a team that many thought would finish in the top 10 to actually be third going into the last 10 games of the season with a real good chance of automatic promotion. But playing that way means that every now and again you will get beat and you will get exposed. And what we can't do is throw the baby out with the bathwater, because that's happened this time. Look, every time this has happened in our last two promotion seasons, and I'm sort of thinking Halifax away, I'm thinking Doncaster away, we've come back, we've learned from it, we've used it as a kick up the arse rather than everything falling apart, and we've gone on to clinch promotion. This is how we have to feel about this result. Now, maybe if we get dicked 4-0 on Wickham, everything's come home to roost, and everything we think about, or some people think about the club and how Parky sets up, it is all true. But at the moment, I'm taking it that, look, you live by that sword, you die by that sword. Every now and again, if you don't dominate teams, which we don't, which has allowed us to have a very good season, but it means that we are susceptible to a performance and a loss like that. And I don't think we should go overboard on it, because I still think with 10 games to go, there is so much to look forward to at the back end of this season.
Yeah, agreed. This one, it's like par for the course where there are going to be those games that don't go away. I mean, there was a Stockport 5-0, was it last season, where we had, last season where we had our pants pulled down completely. But there are going to be games that don't work out. Tim, for you, obviously, we had the insight of watching it from the TV cameras. The penalty, I mean, Phil Parkinson's come out and said that it was one of the worst, I've got the quote in front of me, one of the worst decisions I've ever seen. If he thinks that's a penalty, oh my goodness. But he's also as well said that, by what I'm reading here, that he also thought the sending off for them was a poor decision. For you, was that a pen? I mean, and then also the fact that we see another goal like 4 minutes later as well. It's one thing to,
I mean, it was easy to hone in on those comments quite naturally, but the wider comments are, as he concedes that we didn't play very well, blah blah. Yeah. Whether he's using the penalty thing as an excuse to hang his hat on, I'm not entirely convinced. Do I think it was a penalty? Yes, I do. I thought O'Connell threw out a lazy leg. He didn't need to.
Yeah, clumsy.
Yeah, it was clumsy, and you run the risk. And so early on in the second half, whatever is said in the halftime dressing room is suddenly gone out the window, isn't it, straight away? He's not really protesting that much, in all honesty, from what I can remember. So yeah, and we know, O'Connell was so good, arguably man of the match against Rotherham, takes Sam Smith out of the equation. Yeah. But we all know he's got a bit of a moment like that in him. We've seen it several times this season so far, and it's just really, really frustrating, because usually if he has a crap game, we tend not to be able to recover in any way, shape, or form. So I do think it was a penalty. I'm a fan of Parky. I don't think many of us on here can safely say that we're not. But I think he's talking out of his arse on this occasion. I think he's got it wrong. I think he's using that as a bit of a smokescreen to paper over the cracks, of which there are many. It was rubbish. It was insipid. Everything that you wouldn't want out of Wrexham performance was there in abundance. It was just nothing inspiring about it. And there was a couple of times I was like, I'm just going to pop the toilet, knowing full well I'm not going to miss nothing. Right, in terms of their sending off, it doesn't matter. Ultimately, the lad was taking the piss by time wasting. He gets a second yellow card. Tough luck. You run that risk, you're going to get carded for it. Yeah, Mr. Duckworth and us don't really mix, but you don't play to the referee. You play to the whistle. You play to your strengths, and whatever strengths we have. I don't know after yesterday. There's a big question mark hanging over it, but. What can you do? There's 10 games left. We can't keep like letting it bother us. It's one of those in a strange, perverse way. I'm like, well, you know what? I'd rather have that defeat to Reading than lose on Saturday. And he can use last night's performance as a shitty stick to beat his players with and go, that wasn't good enough. We tend to bounce back after an inexplicable display like that. I'm expecting it again. I'll let Rhys come in because I've got another quick fact after this, which I think is quite pertinent to that performance. Rhys?
Yeah, I was just gonna say spot on. And if we weren't doing a midweek pod and we beat Wickham on Saturday, no one cares about Reading. And 3 points is better than 2 as ever. I always say that in terms of a loss. Sometimes you go, you know what, if we win the next game, that would be better than if we actually went to Reading, performed and drew, and then draw at Wickham. So it really does, sometimes after a really bad result, it's useful to just go, I'm gonna hold my judgment until I see what the next happens in the next game.
Yeah. Can I ask one straw poll question to everyone? Who would you play up front against Wickham?
Can I just do my footnotes before we come to that? Because I think that will be a longer discussion. So a couple of footnotes to it. That was, I think, Reading are now on their biggest unbeaten run for 13 years.
Yeah.
9 years.
Nine games unbeaten, I think.
Yeah, and I'm not making excuses for our performance and the way we played, but that's a team in form, of some semblance of form. It's a lot of their fans are saying performance of the season. How many times have we heard that this year? Our performance of the season was against Wrexham. That's not arrogant. That's just the facts. You look at the fans tend to know what they're talking about when they're putting a decent performance. So that's the first footnote. Second one, Craig Jones put on social media before that. For the first time, I can't remember how long it was for, but definitely first time this season where we've had consecutive league games without a booking. I find A, that astonishing. B, does that maybe suggest that we've been a bit soft recently? I don't know. I mean, you can tread the line well, or you can be very good at holding your discipline, or look at the flip side. And yesterday, I thought we were very soft yesterday. We went up for the physical battle, and they were far quicker than us. So I just thought that was quite an interesting thing to throw into the mix. No cards. Testament. They could have got a card later on in the game through frustration, I guess. But I just wonder if we're maybe a little bit soft in certain regards.
I think one for me was, I mean, last season I thought James McLean, when he played in central midfield, worked quite well. But yesterday,
I don't think he did yesterday.
No,
he
exactly.
Looked like a left-sided player.
Well, that's it. Yesterday, he kept drifting, and I'm a big Jimmy Mack fan. But yesterday, he kept drifting so far left, which meant that Seb Revan was tucking inside. And I think you talk about the midfield, maybe was bypassed. And I think that was maybe part of it. Was you got two players there who were just kind of like, McLean's gone off to the left, Revan's coming in, but not really knowing what to do because that's nowhere in his wheelhouse.
Revan had a poor game yesterday.
Everyone was crap yesterday. Let's not beat around the bush. I think it's one to forget. And I think
I'm not trying to single someone out. It's just I do think maybe Jimmy was going over there because
here you go with your agenda again. Any chance to just leap in to jump on Jimmy Mack?
No, I was actually saying, look. When he did go out there, we did look more dangerous. That's all I was saying.
But then it left a massive gap in the central midfield where he was supposed to be playing. So it's that thing. And to be fair, as well, I think with Seb Revan, I thought the last few games, he very much earned his place in that team. He deserved to start last night. Just he didn't have the greatest of games. I mean, When we come out of that, I mean, there is a wider discussion to talk about in terms of who comes in for Wickham, which we'll get to in a few minutes when we preview the Wickham game properly. But I mean, was there anybody coming out of that game last night that impressed, dare I say, or just yeah?
Lee and Longman
being there.
looked. Lee and Longman
all
looked
day
decent
long.
when they came on.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
Fletcher missed the sitter. You know, he just hit it first time. Don't dick
Yeah.
around with it. The ball comes hit it first time. The octopus over your left shoulder, Andy, kind of sums up all of our facial expressions to yesterday's defeat. Have you given it a name yet?
It's actually called Ollie. Thanks for asking. And now I don't know. I'm not going to say which Ollie it's called after and why an octopus is called Ollie. So would
Rathbone, because he's everywhere.
Oh yeah, that's
it's
exactly
Ollie
what it is.
Kearns. It's Ollie
Yeah.
Kearns, isn't it? It's
Yeah.
Ollie Kearns.
No, you're right. It's Rathbone because he's so industrious. That's exactly what it is.
Processes are industrious.
Let's move on.
I think it's time for YouTube if you want to. And
we got
this
shit
week's
over that.
comment is from CR26404.
Oh, sign of quality when there's numbers after it.
That good, he's froze.
Oh, Rhys, no, you can't.
You
Says.
can't do that. He's
Ah.
absolutely done us. Look, if
He's
we
done
are going to
himself.
talk about last week's pod or
Done
last
himself.
Sunday's pod, which was quite divisive for many of us, you back, Rhys?
I'm back.
Yeah, do it
Let me
again.
finish my comment. It's back. It's going up and down. CR26404, who says, we need to change this podcast name to Fearless of Devotion, bringing on that preposterous Daily Mail columnists who deliberately misinterpreted Ryan's joke in a social media video and wrote a long ranting column trying to list every fault in the club. On the verge of doing something historic and its never-ending fault-finding about things like the size of the club shop. Apparently, the better plan is to be like Carlisle, where they have a nice club shop and a fan zone and are about to just get relegated back out of the EFL. Ryan and Rob are now literally being ripped for being successful. These people are desperate for failure. This conversation is so incredibly toxic, makes me never want to listen again.
Right, can I...
Well said. You know what? If I was on it's because I wasn't there. The podcast lost its way.
I was also not there. Me and Rhys are.
It was
disowning
rubbish.
This. Yeah.
And you know what? I'm never going to listen again. Mate.
Yeah,
so
we're the grounded of this, clearly, obviously.
He wrote that, and his bandwidth was still better than yours, Rhys.
I know.
Look, the only thing I'd say about that is, I know a lot of people didn't think we challenged Ian enough, and I know some people thought that we were too negative, but we've all come close to losing this club on more than one occasion, all right? And it would be remiss of us not to point out things aren't going well and just sort of go, oh, everything's great. We can't do that. We nearly lost this club in 2010 and 11 with Jeff Moss, before it with Alex Hamilton. We know what it's like to lose something so dear to us. And so we have to ask the questions. And, you know, it might not chime with everyone else's opinion, and that's fair enough. But I still think constructive criticism of the club is warranted in certain places. And I won't apologize for that.
And also, we're not Newsnight. And I think Liam made this point well as well. It's like our job is not to interrogate guests that we have on who might have a different viewpoint. Some people will come on and will have a different opinion to other people, and that's okay. And we're not here to Paxman, you know, those guests. So, you know, just chill out, guys.
I mean, I am, but I wasn't on last week, so yeah.
Yeah,
all right, should we get our guest in and let's really Paxman in?
Here comes Alex
Absolutely
Hamilton.
rip him to shreds. All right, I'm admitting the Wycombe Way.
Oh,
This is the way.
Fair play. Who's going on Saturday, by the way? Rhys?
no, I'll actually be in Shrewsbury.
Oh, dirty Rhys. Actor.
Jesus Christ. Venus.
Well, what are you doing in Shrewsbury, Rhys? I have to ask.
Visiting a friend.
Oh, that sounded really seedy the way you said that then.
It's not CD.
Is his name Gareth Ainsworth?
No, she lives in New York.
Oh, she.
Oh, it's a she.
It's my wife's bridesmaid. And
I got that incorrect.
You going that close to home? Oh my
yeah,
word! What are you doing?
yeah. The Wickham Way has lost his way into our meeting room, isn't he? But so I'll just talk about my wife.
Show your face, Giorgio.
I'll just talk about my wife's bridesmaid until the
Unmute.
Wickham Way finds his way in.
Oh well, here we go. He's on. Can you hear us?
I can
That's the
hear
face
you.
I
Can you
pulled
hear
last
me?
night. We can hear you.
Excellent.
There we are. Yes, we have. For those not watching on YouTube, those listening solely on various podcast platforms, that's easy for me to say tonight. We do have George from the Wycombe Way. George, how you doing on this
I'm
fine
very well,
evening?
thank you, gentlemen. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we've got a bit of a big game at the weekend, but other than that, how you finding Wickham so far this season? Because I mean, I think a lot of us, I speak for myself. I thought we were very lucky to play you first game of the season because then you got on that roll and you just carried on rolling, and then even Matt Bloomfield leaving for Luton in January. I mean, I think pretty much every other team in the division thought that's it. Wickham are going to have a wobble, but under Mike Dodds, no, not really happened, does it?
No, we've lost a bit of momentum, but we're still picking up points, so we're not losing games, so that's promising. Yeah, like you said, the game against you guys came at a difficult time. We were still finding our feet with quite a few new signings. And obviously we lost the game to you. We lost against Birmingham the next weekend, and then didn't lose in 21, which it sort of shows our credentials. But yeah, the changing in manager has left a little bit to be desired so far. I don't think he's hit the ground running as he would have liked. But like I said, we're not losing games. We're picking up points, so we're sort of slowly ticking along.
Yeah, it does seem to be a few more draws than wins under Mike Dodds, but I mean, you're second in League One. Is this at the start of the season? Was this realistically? Is this where you Wickham were kind of like aiming for, or was it? I don't know. Was it mid table would have been good? Would the playoffs been good? What was the expectations at the start of the season?
Certainly not to be this high. We ended last season in mid-table after a really good run, and the underlying numbers in March and April showed that this was possible. But I don't think it was the expectation. Maybe a playoff push at best, sort of eighth, ninth, that sort of area. So to be second in the league, to be in control at this stage with what will be 9, 10 games to go, it is some achievement really. And I just hope that the change throughout the season, the last few weeks don't affect us too much, and we can go on and achieve the goal we set out to achieve.
Andy, who you can see with the octopus behind his shoulder, he has been saying since October that Wickham are gonna fall. They're never gonna last.
Absolutely, you keep doing me. Don't you?
No, it's true. It's true.
I mean, you did say those things.
Why is he so wrong, and why has he been so wrong?
I mean, if I had £1 for everyone I've heard tell me that we're going to fall off, I'd be a very rich man. It just hasn't happened, and I think that's because our strengthening depth this season has been very, very good. We've been able to rotate for most games, and that's kept us fresh, especially in our forward areas, where we haven't had that in recent seasons. Gareth Ainsworth, when he was here, always liked a very small, tight-knit squad. And whilst he got the best out of players who perhaps weren't good enough for the level, when he had to make changes, we didn't have the quality in those areas. Whereas Bloomfield likes strength in depth, he likes to have a lot of versatility. So if your left back's out, then your centre midfielder can play there and vice versa, which has allowed us to chop and change throughout the season. I can't remember many occasions we've had the same 11 for consecutive games, but that hasn't hindered us at all. And I think that's the main reason we've been able to keep it so fresh. And there's always competition for places. So when new players come in there, they're trying to achieve something, they're trying to impress, and that sort of got us to where we are.
George, just a few questions. First, who is your game in hand against? Remind us.
Oh, that's a great question. I don't know.
Can it be Birmingham again, please?
It's one of the good teams. I think we've got.
I think it's Rotherham away.
Stevenage outside of the top 10, and then we play everyone else in the top 10 bar Birmingham. So our running is really quite tricky. It hasn't been kind to us at all. But I don't know who our game in hand is against.
It's Rotherham away.
That's the one. Yeah.
Do you feel? I mean, from the outside looking in, everybody will look at Saturday's game as kind of like the quintessential 6-pointer, even though. I mean, you've got an extra game more than us. We're 10 games and counting down now. Do you feel that is the one that if there is a winner in that game, is that then full steam ahead advantage to that person, that team getting second place, or is it still too early, given there's still plenty of games to play?
I think it would put us in the driving seat more so than it would for you guys. Obviously, with that game in hand, we've got being 3 points clear at this stage would be a big advantage. But I still don't think we're the only two teams in the race for that that second place. Especially with the rate in which Charlton are picking up points recently, that they're sort of really motoring on at a really good time. But I think it'll be between one of those three. Obviously, us and yourselves are the front runners, but the rate in which Charlton are going, and with a manager who's got experience at getting out of this league, I don't think they can be written off at all.
You watched us last night. I'm assuming it was you that tweeted out on your account. You said quite rightly that we were poor. What if anything did you take away from that other than the blatantly obvious? Were you surprised? Because we get it an awful lot that, well, they must be the shittest team to be in third place. For, everybody says the same thing, and we've eked out points. Some have been grittier than others. Some have been more fortunate than others. But you make your own luck.
Yeah, I was surprised at just how poor you were. I know a lot have been made of your away form this season, but sort of going to a place like Reading, who have got their problems off the pitch, I thought you'd be up for it a bit more than you were. The main takeaway I sort of got from it is that if our centre backs are on form and they have a good game, then I think we're going to be in a really good position to win, because we've got two commanding centre backs. I don't think Jay Rodriguez has hit the ground running yet. I think Sam Smith is a good striker at this level, but not really physical enough to cause big centre backs problems. The first game of the season, obviously Ollie Palmer started up front with Jack Marriott, and that combination of big man, little man worked really, really well. Ollie Palmer had a great game. I don't think he's done that too many times this season. But yeah, I mean, if our defence have a good game, then I think we're going to be in luck.
He's missing in action, Ollie Palmer. I believe he's back in training, so he may well enter from the phrase the periphery on Saturday. Who knows? Before I let one of the lads come back in, and we've discussed the Craig Falconbridge derby on Saturday, which I'm now going to dub it because I couldn't think of any of the players that had that link apart from Craig Falconbridge off the top of my head. You've been in the Championship. What's it like? Because we've had a raging debate in recent weeks as to whether we're prepared for it. Blah blah blah. And remind us of when you were last there, how long you were there for, what the major specific differences between that division and this division, if you're able to.
I can try, given it was the COVID season. So there were no fans in the ground anyway. We were there for one season, finished 22nd after a late surge. I say up the table, up 2 places to 22nd. I think not having fans in the ground was a big disadvantage for us. Obviously, going up to the Championship, you want to make your home ground a fortress, similar to what you guys have done this season. And so I think that went against us as well. But I just don't think we had the firepower financially to compete, really. A lot of our signings that year were loanees from the Premier League and even fellow Championship clubs, where we didn't get the most amount of money from the run-in that season. The playoff campaign, obviously there was no fans at Wembley. Everything was sort of trimmed back because of the pandemic. Whereas this season, if we go up, we've got an awful lot of money to spend. I'm sure we will strengthen. And also just having fans in the ground, if it comes to that, will be a big advantage as well. So I can't compare this to anything because we've never been in that situation where we've had fans in the Championship. But yeah, it's certainly a tricky league, and I feel like a lot has been made of the gap between the Premier League and the top of the Championship. But I also feel the gap between the bottom of the Championship and top of League One is also widening slightly as well.
Can we talk about Kone, who is going to be the danger man? He's one that sort of snuck up on me a little. I've seen little bits of him. He seems to have a little bit of everything as a striker. Very surprised you turned down the 7 million for him, but do you think holding on to him will actually get you more money in the long run if he qualifies you to promotion?
Well, he's got a year on his deal after this summer, so the summer of 2026. I mean, let's say we do go up and he has a good season next season, then there's no reason why you don't double that transfer fee or near enough to it. So already then it's a good decision to keep him on board. If we don't go up this season, then it's a big risk, because there's no guarantee he puts in the same numbers next season. I think whilst it was a big Luton bid, I think it reaped desperation. Bloomfield worked with him at Wickham. He needed a striker desperately. Ultimately, didn't get one, and he's been struggling since. And so, as good as Coney is, I don't think he's worth 7 million quid yet. Obviously, he's been very good for us, scored a lot of goals, but 7 million for anyone in League One is a ridiculous amount of money. And so, for that reason, I am surprised we turned it down. But it all depends on what we do over the next 6 weeks or so. That's going to, show if it was a brave decision or a bit a silly one, really.
Should we do predictions, lads? Rhys?
Oh, I'm nervous. I'm nervous about our midfield. My one hope is that last night was so bad, so disappointing. We played so badly. It's almost taken a little bit of pressure off us.
Oh,
I've seen it a very long.
oh, he's gone.
Again.
Yeah.
It seems fine for me. What's wrong with it tonight?
So it's not.
Oh,
I
it's
don't
us,
understand.
not
Not
you,
it's
Rhys.
everyone else. Yeah. Everyone needs to
Yes,
get
it's not me.
more bandwidth.
Ever
It's not
since you
me.
moved, ever since you moved those dead bodies out the room at the start of the pod, it's all gone wrong.
I also like how every time we start the pod, he puts more and more weight on that weight bench, as if he absolutely.
And the three darts are in the bullseye.
Right, quickly, we got you back. What do you think?
Right, I'm back. The pressure's off us a little bit, I think, because we were so spectacularly bad against Reading. But I'm a bit worried about midfield. But I'm going to say that we're going to go there and make it a game, and it's going to be 1-1.
Okay, I'll take that. Andrew?
I say we're going to go there and we're going to win 2-0. I'm going bold. I know. It's probably unrealistic. And I also wanted to float the idea of, like, you mentioned Ollie Palmer earlier on. You invoked his name, as in, oh, Tim's got some glasses on. We're at a point where Ollie has to come back in, because Ollie Palmer, the success we've had the last couple of seasons, his role, even if he's not scoring, his role in that team has been so important. I mean, if Ollie's fit, does he come in?
All right,
Does Moles
okay.
come in?
All right, Ollie's not scoring, neither is Rodriguez. So if you're going to have a striker up front who isn't scoring, you might as well have Ollie than Jay Rodriguez.
Exactly, and the other side as well with Paul Mullin is the fact that obviously Mo Farr was on the bench against Reading, and Mole's nowhere to be seen. I mean, that's a topic we should have dissected by now, I guess. But yeah, I'm going to go 2-0.
Okay, all right.
Come on, the town.
George, what Tuesday away at Reading was? It was all a big ruse. What we've actually done is lull you into a false sense of security because we're actually going to be brilliant on Saturday. Look, I've got a sneaky one. I reckon we could do it by a goal. I reckon it might be 2-1. George, what do you reckon?
I'm thinking 1-0 Wickham, and I'll step your hand off for that. We haven't won 2 in a row since November. So it's a good job we drew at the weekend. But I've also learned that you guys don't often lose 2 in a row. So I'm wary of that as well. And like you said, I expect a bit of a bounce back because last night was really poor. So I expect Parky to really rip into them. So yeah, tight game, but 1-0 Wickham.
Tim?
George, I have to jump in there with obviously your second. It's all in your hands at the moment. If you, like ourselves as well, if you were to end up in the playoffs, would that be, how much of a blow would that be? Because obviously, of course, the team that doesn't go up in the play, or doesn't go up automatically, there's always that kind of albatross around the neck sort of thing. If we somehow usurped you and got second, would that be a massive blow? I mean, I think I'd see for I think that Wickham will get second, but yeah, how much of a blow would that be if you didn't?
Obviously expectation wise it would still be a massive success, but but a lot of the playoffs comes down to momentum and recent form. And so for argument's sake, we don't start picking up wins consecutively, and we go into the playoffs drawing some, winning some, losing some. Then I think that'd be a big issue, especially with the form of some other teams, and attendances as well. Big crowds have hindered us this season. You look at the top 10, they've got some really big stadiums, really big crowds, whereas we've averaged 4,000 to 5,000 all season. I think that's hindered us a little bit, and that will be a factor in the playoffs too.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. I remember like Wickham being a non-league club under Martin O'Neill, getting through the ranks there. But continue our predictions. Tim, what were you thinking for the weekend?
I am gonna go bold because I've got relatives in Wickham, so there's going to be a bit of needle over the next few days, no doubt, to and fro in. And I think we're going to go from arguably the worst performance of the season, not just away, overall, to surely one of the most improved. I'm not going to say the best, but certainly one of the most improved. And I think they might surprise us. And I think I'm going to go. I'm going to say we'll edge it. We'll edge it 2-1 and win it late on. And it's just because I'm a hopeless romantic, and I just think at this stage of the season, if you can't believe this team are going to be capable of grinding out wins, you might as well just give it up. There's no point coming this far and then pissing it up the wall. Wickham will saying exactly the same thing. So there's so much riding on it. So despite me, I'm going to go for the 2-1 win, but I will not at all be surprised if it's 0-0 as well. So it's a big occasion, and who'd have thought we'd be saying that a few years ago? And I think that's testament to how far we've come, but it's also testament to how well Wickham have done at that level. And like I remember, I think we've all been there. And we've like, how can Wickham be in the Championship? How can Bournemouth be in the Premier League? And you look to these teams and go, if they can do it with the greatest respect to those teams, then surely we have to have a bit of hope that we can do it as well. When where there's maybe a limitation in terms of crowds and location. Not a million miles away from London and everything else. So you've got to say hats off to those Chairboys fans who've stuck with that club through thick and thin, really, because there was a lot of lean times in the past as well.
And also, I've got to say, I've always had a lot of time for Bill Turnbull. May he rest in peace. He was my favourite BBC breakfast presenter, and he was a big Wickham fan. So I've always had a lot of time for Wickham.
What about Jimmy Carr and
Jimmy
James
Savile?
Carr?
Jimmy Carr and James Corden have Wickham links.
Do they?
They do.
James
That nod of the head has confirmed it. Yeah.
Controversial opinion. I don't like Jimmy Carr. I like James Corden.
Oh,
sue me now.
Yeah, controversial point. I think they're both massive bellends. Yeah.
Oh, it's not this. Let's cut out this coarse nonsense and bring this to an end.
Yes. Let's bring this.
But George, before you go, just give us an idea of where Wrexham fans can go for a pre-match slurp, stroke meal, etc., if you'd be so kind.
A meal? Who's having a sit-down meal?
Tim's got
I had a sit-down meal in Reading last night.
Tomorrow for a freebie. Have a word.
I had a sit-down meal in Reading last night. Well, I've travelled 3 hours, mate. I'm gonna have some food.
How was it as well? How was the food? All right.
It was good. Yeah, I went to the Swan, just south of the M4. It was lovely. I had fish and chips.
Nice.
How much was it? How much?
£14.50.
See, that's going to be about 18, 19 quid in Wickham.
Why?
Like you're protected down south.
Let George answer the question.
I mean,
yes.
Reading is further south than Wickham. How can you say that Wickham's going to be more expensive?
Well, you're the one who's turned your nose up at a meal. Don't start questioning it now. Anyway, George, sorry, Karen.
Wickham is notoriously the worst away day in the 92.
Oh.
Well, thank you, George.
The train station is, I think it's 4 and a bit miles from the ground. There is a Wetherspoons in the town centre. That's about as good as it gets. The 2 away fans pubs near the ground closed down in the last 18 months. There's one pub a 15-minute walk from the ground, and it's nestled at the end of an industrial estate. So your best bet is to get to the ground early. There is a nice big marquee for away fans with a separate bar. So we do try our best to look after them. There's a few food trucks outside. But yeah, nothing to do in the town. So get to the ground as early as you can. And and get a lukewarm beer from the bar.
I'll be honest,
Absolutely
George, you've really
sold.
sold that to us. Basically, take your own crate of cans, get a Tesco meal deal, and you'll be all right.
It's
The best
Andy.
part
It's
about
Andy
all of
Gilpin's
that-
perfect day out.
The best part about all of that was Rhys froze whilst George was slagging it off as one of the worst away days ever, and you froze like this. So that should be your new screensaver going forward. It's tremendous.
Right.
Let's get this wrapped up. Yeah. This has been the latest episode of Fearless in Devotion. Thank you to George from the Wycombe Way. George, where can everybody find you before we let you go? Where can everybody find you on the social medias and all that stuff?
It's mainly Twitter, or X as they now call it, but I'm all over social media. It's just the Wycombe Way. There's a weekly pint-sized preview podcast live stream thing. So yeah, mainly X.
Fantastic.
What is the Wycombe Way? Before we go, I knew I was supposed to tell you. Is it a certain thing?
How do you mean, sorry?
Is it a style of play?
It's more the culture. Or so it was when it was Ainsworth and Bloomfield. A lot of people say the Wycombe Way is a culture and something you buy into. But I think that's sort of it's dying a death recently. So hopefully a good few weeks will reinvigorate that.
Of the Wycombe. Happy days. Right, lovely.
Yeah, let's get out of here. George, thank you for joining us here. Obviously, thanks to Tim, to Andy, to Rhys. I've been Andrew Pollard. This has been the latest episode of Fearless in Devotion. Thank you to our sponsors, the Fat Boy Mold, Wrexham, Hill Street, Social, the Mice Square, and Effie's Carnivore, the Bucking Banger, and the Croix Owl. We'll be back on Sunday with more goodness.
Probably. Take care.
See you. Bye.